Hi everyone, and welcome to today's workshop, The Magic of Great Implementation, which is a four-part session designed to help you make your assessment program a success, and also to help you create a high-performance workforce. My name is Henji Santos, Country Director for Profiles Asia, and I will be your presenter and facilitator for today's event. For the first part of the session, it's all about superior performance and the information gap. Even if you have every other aspect of your business working perfectly, people problems can still be the difference between profit and loss, extinction, and survival. On the face of it, that might sound like a very extreme thing to say. Even if I have every other aspect of my business performing perfectly, my people could still ensure that my business does not survive or fail to make a profit? Yes, that's exactly what the study of 85 years of research has shown very clearly. Frank Schmidt and John Hunter, two of the foremost experts in personal productivity and psychology, undertook a major review of the dozens of studies on the impact people have upon the success of the organization conducted over the last 85 years. Their aim was to distill out practical usable information that could help organization determine the impact and improve the people aspect of their businesses. They uncovered an amount of truly valuable information that everyone in the business should be aware of. We have time to focus only on a small part of that report today, but if any one of you would like a full copy of this study, please let me know later and we can arrange a copy for you. And one of their most interesting findings related to productivity. You might recognize this shape as a stylized population distribution bell curve. What they found was that for every job and every level, they reviewed that there were people who consistently outperformed the majority of their peers in the same position. They referred to this as superior performers and found that about 16% of the people in any job fell into this category. At the other end of the spectrum, they found the non-producers, who consistently produce much less than the majority of their peers in the job. And again, they found that about 16% of the people in any job fell into this category. And finally, they found that the vast majority of people produced at a level somewhere in between these two extremes. And they were the average or so-so performers, neither so bad or so good as to attract any specific attention. So what now? Well, their findings become very interesting when you look at the difference between the level of output from each of these categories of the workers. When they look at unskilled or semi-skilled workers, they found that non-producer were produced 19% less than their average peers, and that superiors produced 19% more than their average peers. So the difference in output between the non-producers and the superior producer was a massive 38%. They also found that non-producer skilled workers produced 32% less than their average peers, and superior skilled workers produce 32% more than their average peers. So there was a 64% difference in the output between non-producers and the superior producer in these skilled positions. And finally, they found that non-producing managers produce 48% less than average managers, and superior managers or professionals produce an extraordinary 48% more than their average peers. And there's an incredible 96% difference between non-producing managers and their superior peers. And don't forget that the research showed that about 16% of all workers fell under this non-producer label. They also suggested a method for monetizing or dollarizing the impact of this upon their employers by suggesting, for example, that for every seat occupied by an average worker instead of a superior worker, The cost of the organization can be stated minimally as the appropriate percentage of the salary those workers are paid. So, what does this mean in practice? Imagine yours is a relatively small company with 50 semi-skilled workers and 25 skilled workers and 10 managers. Let's say your unskilled workers can earn an average of 20,000 per annum. To dollarize the difference between the average and superior workers in each of this position, the estimated cost of production loss to average workers at the minimum of this is 19% of their salary, which comes to 3,800 per position. So for every one of this position where you've got an average rather than a superior worker, it's costing you a minimum of 3,800, and you have 50 unskilled workers, the total potential impact is $190,000. Now, let's say you have 25 skilled workers earn an average of 40,000. Then the potential impact is 320,000. And finally, if your 10 managers earn an average of 60,000, the total potential impact is $280,000. Add these three figures, and you can see that although we're dealing with a fairly small organization, the cost to them can be enormous. The difference between profit and loss, and maybe even survival and extinction. Think of your own numbers. Are there more or less people in each category? Do the salaries differ? Regardless of how large or small your organization, there's a good news here. Look at the three central red boxes. The message is clear. For every single position, excuse me, where you make decisions or take action that raise performance levels from average to superior, you immediately impact your bottom line. Look at the percentage of the salary investment your fictional company puts at risk by not focusing upon this key aspect of the business. This is not the worst case scenario. If they have people who are below average in any positions, then the picture is even worse, double for every one of those positions. Unless all your people are superior performers, you are losing money unnecessarily. Regardless how large or small your organization, the potential losses are relatively large. So, every time you move performance in any single job from average to superior, you have a measurable financial impact and worthwhile savings. Now, your challenge. To avoid unnecessary people costs, you must be sure that every time you make a people decision, whether you are hiring someone new, moving someone from one job to another, or promoting someone, or investing in training or development, you are doing so with a view to promoting superior performance in the target position. But how do you do this? Well, to understand the how, first we need to look at the why. Why some people perform at superior level and some don't. Harvard Business Review researchers set out to answer this question with the largest ever research study of its kind. For 20 years, they have followed 360,000 people and across 14 industries through their careers to see what made the superior performer successful. And the results are staggering. They have found that none of the usual ways of selecting people for their jobs had any significant ability to predict whether or not they would be successful in their jobs. There was no relationship between performance and educational qualifications, gender, age, race, experience, or any of many other criteria used to select people for their jobs. What they did find, however, was that when people were matched into jobs that they were capable of doing and they were motivated to do in an environment that suited their personality and behaviors, then they were successful. So they did some further studies to confirm their findings, monitoring the recruitment of people into positions in a variety of industries, some of which suffered high employee turnover and some of which enjoyed a low employee turnover. And during the study, some of those hired were hired using a job match approach, and some were hired through conventional approaches. And the results were conclusive. Not only that, did they find that those who were job matched to their positions outperformed their non-job matched peers in their first 6 months in their job, but they also found that performance gaps had widened significantly after 14 months. And as if they were not enough, they found that those who were job matched to their positions tended to stay in their jobs much longer, significantly reducing employee turnover and many costs associated with this plague, such as advertising costs, agency costs, management time, downtime, morale, and so on and so forth. Now, look at these numbers. In the high turnover industries, people stayed twice as long as when they were matched to their jobs, while in low turnover industry, they stayed as much as 5 times longer. Again, we can't go back into the full content of this fascinating report, but if anyone would like a copy of the HBR study results, please let me know later and we can arrange a copy for you. Now, I love this. I love this tech. Well, their findings got a new wave of job matching started with many books, like this colorful example. Well, it's entitled "Don't Wander Off the Ranch." Okay, the contented cows. Presenting the results of even more research that clearly showed that matching people into their jobs resulted in more productive and retainable employees. So how and when do you go about this job matching? Well, first, you have 2 opportunities to match people to jobs. First, the most efficient and desirable, you can hire or select the right person for each of your jobs first time around. Do this and you are winning the right people from the start. Remember, the research showed that job match people started out by outperforming their non-match peers and continue to do this. Of course, in some of our positions, you will already have people who are falling short of superior performance, and recruiting replacement in those positions is just not an option. So, the second necessary job matching option is that of coaching your existing employees or your people to achieve a higher level of performance than they currently do. Well, look at these 2 approaches in some details now. Can you help me out here? Can anyone can I have a show of hands for anyone who has ever had anything to do with hiring, moving people, or promoting someone into their job? Okay, thank you very much. Now, have any one of you responsible for hiring and promotion have ever hired or promoted someone who failed to live up to your expectation, who did not deliver what you expected of them when they took up the position? Can I have anyone show of hands, please? Yeah. So most people have had the unfortunate experience, of course. And that's what we find every time we ask that question. Another one, same thing. I would like every one of you to show of hands just one more time, please, okay? Have you ever hired or promoted someone who greatly exceeded your expectations? Great. And sure, she look, sure he or she looked good enough to hire in the interview, but later he or she turned out to be one of your best performers. And how many people have had that experience? Well, this is going to be the last one, but I would also like you to raise your hands, okay? How different were the processes used in these two cases? Any one of you could be able to share. Well, there was none. Why would there be? Every time we set out to hire, we set out to do the best job we possibly can. We always set out to hire the very best. Yet, conventional approaches to putting people into the job are as likely to hire the below average performers as they are to hire the above average performer. I've asked these questions of hundreds of employers and then asked them how they came to hire the underperformer. And the response always sounds pretty much the same. People said, if only I had known that Joe couldn't, if I only had known that Joe was sort of person and so forth, if only had I known. They clearly identified the fact that conventional approaches to putting people into the jobs simply do not provide enough useful information to ensure that they get the consistently good hit rate in identifying the best people for their position. Now, the next thing is let's briefly look at how people are normally placed into their job. Well, first thing is that every year we speak with hundreds of people responsible for placing people in jobs in their organization. And the first thing we ask them to do is outline the approach they take to hiring or moving or promoting people into their positions. There are, of course, lots of variation in the theme, but most people follow at least these two key steps as they set out and predict the future. First, they look at the candidate's educational qualification, skills, experience, any information that they can find about the candidate's past performance that has any likely relevance to what they wanted them to do in the future. And this information on past performance is gleaned from the resumes, application forms, etc. So this is really to determine the candidate, if the candidate has the basic skills and know-how necessary to undertake the position in question. This thing, if this looks interesting enough, then they move into the next steps of the reviewing of how the candidate looks today, and to determine how well they feel the candidate will fit into the company. And for this, they generally use the interview as a core of the processes. So, and remember, their job is to predict the future superior performance of those they hire. Well, the research shows that most placement decisions are made mainly on the basis of the interview. So, cast your mind back to the last job interview you did. Think of who you presented to the interviewers on that day. Was it you, warts and all, or was it highly polished version of you, the all warts gone, with the perfect education, qualification, experience, and personality for the position on offer? Yep. People are like iceberg. When they attend interviews, they float into the room looking powerful, whiter than white, a wonderful force of nature. So we hire them, and the moment we welcome them aboard, we get a lot more than we had expected. Now, sometimes what we get is much more valuable than what we thought we were getting. And we have the wonderful experience of hiring someone who greatly exceeds the expectation that we have for them. But sometimes that 7/8 that floats below the surface unseen is what makes them a critical danger to our business. So much so that if we had seen the large volume of hidden attributes, we might have avoided them altogether. Interviews simply cannot see below the surface of the individuals. You cannot give, it cannot give you, you as the occasional interviewer, that includes me, the information I need to have to make a good decision when I put, or you put someone into one of those positions in question. So, Interviews provide valuable information about a person that you cannot easily get through any other means. So they are necessary, but interview alone do not provide all of the information needed to make these key decisions. And no businesses can afford the risk of making decisions that can have such a dramatic financial impact as we've seen people can, unless they have all the necessary information. That's where the value of job matching, as identified by the HBR review study discussed earlier, really comes into play. So, but what if we were to combine the resume, information you get about someone's experience, educations, and qualification, and the information you get from the interview with a job matching approach? That would be undoubtedly improve your chances of making the right decision because you'd be working with more of the required information. Now let's look at this closer. Please, I would like every one of you, okay, please go to your pockets and take out one coin, okay, and have it close to your hand. And I'll come back to you in a few minutes on this. And if you don't have coins, please let me know, and then I'll probably pass you on. Okay, great. Did you know that research consistently shows that conventional, unstructured interviews conducted by the average interviewers, just like you and me, provide only 14% of the information you need to make a good hiring decision? And the same research shows that more structured behavioral interview can bring this up to 51%, but none of us typically goes through that, and most of our organizations, at least based on experience, to predict how the person will perform in this position. And that's what you do every time you hire someone. You say, I predict that Larry, Tom, Dick, and Harry will be one of my best performers, okay? Would you feel confident making such predictions on the basis of interview alone? Where the statistics clearly shows that you'd get 1 in 6 hit rate or success rate? Of course not. Let me show you how to triple the success rate you get with interviews alone. Now, go back to the coin. Take that coin and place it on the nail of your thumb. Okay? So what I would like to do is the next time you hire, simply flip the coin in the air and say, heads he gets the job, tails he doesn't. You'll get it 50% of the time, which is 3 times more effective than using old-fashioned unstructured interviews alone. Does that make sense? But seriously, you need more information to make effective predictions of peer performance when you place people into their jobs, most especially leaders and managers of organization. Of course, it would be great if you get 100%, but there's no such thing as 100%, okay, of the information necessary to make great people decision every time. But there are so many variables that this simply is not possible. Let's start with the worst case scenario, the interview, which leaves only 14% chances of success. Our traditional interview gives us the potential to predict the outcome of our hiring decision about 1 for every 7 people we hire. Okay? However, every time you add a new usable information that pushes your predictive hit rate upwards, you save your organization money. You immediately begin to increase your hit rate in identifying superior performers. But what other information can you add into this process? Okay, well, there's the obvious. Basically, the first thing you can do is you can ensure you can collect as much possible background information as you can before you make your decision, and one of which is the background check. If it's a new hire situation, then you'll want to collect references from former employers, checking for dates of employment, performance level, responsibilities, experience, training, etc., etc. You'll also want to check out the formal educational qualification if appropriate, and where possible to run a full checks of the universities that this he and she so and so person have attended to. Okay, even at the point in time where many employers are cautious about giving references for fear of litigation, where formal background checks may be difficult in some jurisdiction, but I don't see it as a problem in Singapore, technically. So this statistic shows that this information alone can push your prediction hit rate up to 26%. So it's definitely worth the effort. But like I said, 26% still means that you'll likely get it wrong in 3 or 4 cases. So what other information might be useful? Let's return for the moment to that review as discussed. So the HBR review proved that people perform at a superior level when they were matched to their jobs. Look at the superior producers. They fit their jobs. If they didn't, they couldn't sustain their level of performance. So these are people who can deal with the mental or intellectual demands of the position. They can handle whatever level of information processing is required of them in the position. Even the lowliest positions have some requirements for the person to doing it to handle some level of information effectively. So another thing is these are people comfortable with the demands of the environment and people they must work with. So these are people who have personalities that allow them to be comfortable in the environment of the position and interacting effectively with their colleagues and the clients, the customers, and meeting the challenges of the position's head. And finally, do they love their job, or will they be motivated to do the work? So superior performers tend to be people who are interested in the work, and because they are interested and because they get something from the work, they are much more motivated to be successful in the position. In short, they want to do the job really well. Okay, so what happens when you put someone in a job that simply doesn't fit them? This is for you or me or indeed anyone who might ever be placed in one of your position. Notice that at the moment I'm quite relaxed. I mean, I have this. The reason why I have this elastic band with me is just to show you, just to illustrate the point in terms of the placing people in the right job. Okay, you notice that at the moment I'm quite relaxed and loose, and I have a deal of flexibility at my command, So I stretch out and unstretch this band lightly, and I'm in a job that suits me. So that simply means that I'm in a job that suits me. I feel good. I'm pretty relaxed, and I'm under no great pressure from my job. Now, what if I hate doing paperwork? So every week when I have to prepare my project, I have to submit a progress report, something which I despise. It stresses me just like this, putting me under a little stress, but that's okay because it's just once a week and it takes no more than an hour or 3 or 2. I can cope with that, and when the report is complete, I can relax again into enjoying those parts of the job that turn me on or more. And now imagine look at this. Now imagine if I'm so desperate for a job that I convince you to give me a job that involves report writing 24/7. What do you think happens? Now, because I'm getting too respite from this work that I despise, I stay in this stress situation until one of the two things happen. Either I simply stop trying to meet the demands of the job, I give up, my stress goes away. Yeah, you see the band, I relax, and I feel much better. But you, as my employer, feel a little cheated that the person you selected for this position failed to live up to your expectation. The other possibility is that I am such a conscientious guy. Yes, I am. Despite the stress it causes me, despite the stress that causes me, I continue to give my all to my job until I do this. Yeah, the band breaks. Do you see my point here? So basically, that there are lots of people out there who are living the lives of quiet desperation, or as you call it, suffering in silence. Okay, because they are in jobs that simply do not suit them. Okay, put someone in a job where they cannot deal with the demands on the job, where their personality simply doesn't suit the environment of the job, or the people and situation they encounter, or into the work that they simply find mind-numbingly boring, and you set them up for this sort of stress. They pay for your poor decision, but so do you, in the cost of having less than superior producers. So I have a graph here, and just to highlight some statistics by Gallup, and that's exactly what is happening all over the world. People are being placed in jobs that simply do not fit, so they are in the event. So as a result, they become disengaged. They either simply stop trying to do good for their employers and not engage, and the figure represented by the deeper white bands in this slide, or worse, they start actively trying to do their employers harm. The actively disengaged, represented by the black bands in the slides. So Singapore included there, 17%, 77% and 6%. Only 6% are really engaged employees. So how do you avoid this? Well, remember we earlier agreed that the real reason that non-performers are ever hired into our position is that we simply do not have enough information on the match of a person to their position at the time of the hire. So after all, if we just had this enough information, we would always make hiring decision that results in superior performance, right? So, well, for the benefit of those of you who took the time to be in this workshop at this point, let me tell you that we are now going to show you in great details how the implementation of the Profile XT, which is the total person assessment, will triple the amount of useful information that informs every people-based decision you make in the future. So to start, we will show you how the Profile XT will provide a very detailed insight into the personalities and behaviors that your candidates will bring to their new positions, and we are going to look in detail at why this gets us up from the original 26% hit rate to a 38% when we make a placement decisions. Okay, so we are also going to show you how the Profile XT will provide a huge amount of information and the ability of the candidate to cope with the information or intellectual demands of their new position, and will demonstrate that this increases the success rate for people decisions way up to 54%. And that's twice what we had with the conventional interviews and background checks alone. And we'll see why it is also a key to put people into the jobs they are motivated to do, because we all work harder and more effectively in positions that genuinely interest us. Will show you that the Profile XT identifies precisely what sort of work turns candidates on and off, and that it specifically identifies which position will motivate them and which will demotivate them long before they are ever placed in those positions. And finally, we will show you in great detail how you can identify the specific requirements essential for superior performers in your positions by profiling the shared characteristic of your very top performers in those positions from every level and every department of your company. Okay, we're going to train everyone on how we're going to train in everyone on how to produce such profiles for each of your positions. Profiles against which we're gonna profiles against which potential new candidates can be matched before people-based decisions are made, and by job matching, okay, ensuring that the candidates has all of the attributes of your proven top performers as recommended by the HBR review I shared with you earlier, and you will bring your people decision hit rate up to 75%. So from the starting point where you potentially had as little as the 14% of the information necessary to predict superior performance, in other words, enough information to get 1 in 6 hit rate, you will raise your game to a 3 in 4 hit rate through the addition of a lot more information to the mix. So the message is clear here. If you are serious about targeting superior performance in your organization, then you must have all the information at your very own disposal. Okay? Every time you place someone in a job, from lowest level to leadership level in your organization. And this is not just when you hire, more so when you conduct placement on a basis of internal moves. People move from one job to the other, people being promoted, or people on the basis of new hiring. So every time you place someone in a job, you'll serve your bottom line well if they're completely matched into their job. And that's why the Profile XT is being implemented with such care, because it will provide absolute invaluable information to support your decision. And for those of you who I thank you for attending this first part of the workshop, and we will now move into the more detailed segment of the workshop with the rest of the people who will be joining us for the parts 2, 3, and 4 of this session. So that's we're gonna have a quick break, and we'll see you in 30 minutes. Thank you very much.